Okay, big head syndrome is taking over the video game industry. I'm not just talking about the big heads of developers that are creating these games. I'm talking about the character designs that we're seeing in the games that are coming out nowadays. They literally have the biggest heads you've ever seen in gaming. I think this comes down to what we've been seeing all throughout the industry these past few years, with the game designers and the talent being hired that just don't know how to make character designs that are appealing to the overall general audience that's playing these games. And I don't think there's a bigger example than the newly released Silent Hill 2 that just came out, that has one of the biggest heads for some of the new characters that look absolutely unnatural in this new remake. And a lot of people are complaining about it, saying what's going on with these new updated character designs that have been coming out from these developers these past few years. You can just see some of the character designs in their remake and posters that have been posted up on Twitter and X, where people are making character comparisons with Angela, who was one of the characters that looks absolutely different in the remake. And it's bringing up a lot of suggestions of what's going on with the Bloober team that is developing the Silent Hill 2 remake. And people are questioning their overall talent and skills of producing content at this level. And I think it is a reasonable question to ask. The Bloober team is known for making terrible horror games, so it is reasonable to ask why such a terrible team is taking up the task of remaking one of the classic horror games of our time. And looking at the team of people working on the game, you would suspect they would produce content at a lower level, and that's what we're seeing with the overall character designs with a lot of the titular characters that are coming out for the remake of Silent Hill 2, where specifically Maria, who has the biggest downgrade a lot of people are seeing, where they're seeing the character's head and body shape proportions are out of whack with a normal human being body's proportions. I think this is a thing that we've been seeing all throughout the video gaming industry for the past 10 years now, where we have people that don't know how to actually shape and design character models to actually look like regular human beings. And I think this is the biggest thing we've been seeing for the past 4 years, where a lot of games have been coming out with these enormously gigantic heads on these character profiles with small shoulders and small body types. It just doesn't make sense, and it just reflects the brain drain within the video gaming industry, where you get a lot of new people coming into the gaming industry that just don't know how to actually art design and overall curate the look and appeal of the characters that they're trying to portray in the games that they're producing. I think what we're seeing here with Silent Hill 2, where we have this upstart developer that made poor games consistently for the past 10 years, getting a shot at a remake of a classic game, bringing those poor capabilities to the forefront with a wider audience watching them this time. And I think that's what we're seeing with Bloober team producing this game, where we're seeing some of the characters that just don't even look like their classic editions that we saw previously. You can see the comparisons between the classic Maria and now the remake remastered Maria, where it just doesn't even look like the same character. That strong jaw features, the biggest head, and overall shape that is just not even of a human being. They look like a dwarf almost. So it's showing that lack of talent that is appearing within the video gaming industry itself, and it's reflecting that brain drain that I mentioned earlier in previous videos that is happening, where we're getting a lot of new talent that just doesn't know how to make games, probably not even interested in making games. And I think that's reflected back on the Bloober team. Of course, the reviews coming out, at least the early reviews for this game coming out, calling it stellar, but we can't really believe the reviews that are coming out nowadays from the mainstream social media sites. They're all in cahoots with the developers. They're getting paid to get early release copies, so who knows the actual quality of this game overall. But we're seeing 9s and 10s everywhere, but we saw the same thing happening with multiple other titles that have come out that got 10s and 9s, but the game was absolutely trash. And I think the situation may be reflected back on this game as well. Although some footage that we have been seeing from the game, it doesn't look absolutely terrible, but it doesn't look like the classic as well. And I think that's the thing that we're hoping to see when we see these remakes. We're trying to see something enhanced and design at a higher level, but that's not the thing that we're getting nowadays. When you look at the comparisons of some pivotal scenes from the Silent Hill remake game, the acting seems stiff. The voice acting seems terrible. It doesn't have the emotions and the weight that we saw in the classic version. And I think that's the thing that is unappealing to the people that are seeing this remake, where it's just, okay, this doesn't even feel like the same level of drama. And this game was made 20 years ago. How come the game that is being remastered lacks a level of quality to a game that was produced 20 years ago? And that, I think, is the biggest reflection in the lack of talent in the industry nowadays, where we're seeing people that are coming out with advanced technology and skill set and all the knowledge there for them, and they're making lesser content. Their forebearers who had 20 years of less technological advancement to produce a game that was even better than what we're seeing nowadays. And I have to say, Maria is the biggest example of that, where you just look at the comparisons of the classic design and the remake design, where the lack of artistic creative value is highly apparent, where you see these people that lack the understanding of body proportions and overall head sizes making a design for a character that doesn't look or even have the appeal of the original character. It just reflects back on their poor horror design for these developers who are known to make bad horror games, and it just seeps into this game where it lacks the drama, it lacks that scary elements, it lacks the weightiness of the classic that came out 20 years ago, and it just shows that the talent that is being hired to produce some of this content just don't have the talent to make this content. And this is something we've been obviously seeing with Dragon Age Veilguard as well, that recently released its overall trailer that kind of brought up questions what's going on with the production of this game, because it has a similar style that we had seen in other previous games that has come out with Silent Hill 2, where there's cartoonishly big heads, overall cartoonish designs, and kind of a drifting away from the dark fantasy environment that usually encompassed Dragon Age series in its entirety. That's just taken away, and now we have this new aesthetic that is following the trend that is encapsulating the current industry right now, where we're just having this big head syndrome that is taken over and making this design choice that is overall unappealing to the gamers themselves. And I'm just wondering who started this trend, why is it happening, and why is it continuing on? Because it just shows a lack of artistic ability from the people that are producing content nowadays. And me personally, I think it's just coming from a place of hiring people that don't have the talent to produce something that is unique in of itself. They just have this design style that may be perpetuated within the college system, the game designing system, and now it's taken over the current forefront of the gaming industry right now. We're seeing it pop up everywhere because the new people that are taking over these game development teams are focused on this style. But it's kind of a sad thing to see a downgrade in overall looks of the characters that are being produced for these remake and remasters, and maybe the continuations for these sequels, where it's just what is happening to the games that we saw previously, where they had these kind of unique design styles that captured your imagination and brought you into a different world. Dragon Age, probably the biggest example of that downgrade, where we see the origin, something that came out over 20 years ago, has a better design style to a game that's coming out in 2024. And Dragon Age Inquisition continued that improvement. And I'm thinking, what happened to the skills and talent for the people that produced these games that came out over 10 to 20 years ago? We're seeing a kind of talent downgrade, which I think is reflective on what happens when you don't cater to the people that produce that high quality content, where you push them out of the door in favor of newly skilled and cheaper employees that just don't have the skill or knowledge to produce the content on par of what we saw in the past. And that is reflective of what we're seeing with Silent Hill 2 and of course Dragon Age Veilguard, where now we just have people that are enamored with ginormous heads of their characters. And I think Silent Hill 2 is the biggest example of that, along with Dragon Age Veilguard. But maybe my eyes are deceiving me. Maybe everyone is right that these games are amazing, they're absolutely popular, and everyone that is going against them are out of their mind. That is a possibility, but I don't think so. I just see the downgrade in talent that is coming overall from the video gaming industry, and I think hopefully it changes in the future. This is not to say that the game is bad, though. I think from what we've seen so far, at least the quality elements that we would expect from a remaster, remake is there. They made something that looks functionally better than the original, but I would have to wait and see and play the game myself to understand if it's actually functionally better. But just look at some of the character designs, specifically these two main characters, Maria and Angela, I think it's a downgrade. I think that is just showing the lack of skill, or maybe the political ideology that is in place with this game. James looks fine to me, but I think everything else from the game looks like it could fit into a horror genre, and I would expect it to have some quality, at least from what I'm seeing. But I think the designs, that's my main issue with this title, and I think it is a poor design, and maybe it will carry the game regardless because it is a masterful story to tell. So I think they have that backing them right now. So I think with that, it still could be a great game because it's based on a classic game. So I think there's a high chance it will still be good. But I still think these designs are terrible. But maybe I'm wrong. You tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.